I am Professor Fatai Aremu, the moderator of the session, and to lead will be Professor Gladys to my left, and to discuss the presentation, Professor Sola Adeyanju and pharmacist Ahmed Yakasai. The I've shared with you, can't say it's perfect. It's still open for contributions and comments because subsequently we'll be producing policy brief, policy advice to follow up on the presidential Pali report that was submitted to the president. So may I invite Professor Gladys Akaneku to make the presentation and we can take it forward from there. Please let's appreciate her.
Your Royal Highness, and I beg to stand established protocol for want of time. But before I proceed, before my certificate will be withdrawn, I must recognize in a special way my teacher in the medical school, Professor J.I.B. Adima. Oh, that all of us thought we were going to end up gynecologists. We thank you very much, sir, and I thank you for your. I am Gladys Ifesinachi Ahaneko, a professor of medicine and a participant of Sec 42 of the senior executive course at Nipss. And I'm here to present a reporting out on the 2020 theme, which is population growth and human capital development in Nigeria, challenges and opportunities. This is a presentation by the National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies, SCURU, to the 6th Biannual Family Planning Conference 2020. Nigeria is one of the fastest growing countries in the world with an estimated population of about 200 million. The composition of the country's population is mainly in the youthful category with a high dependency ratio. The ever-increasing population of Nigeria presents a huge challenge and an immense opportunity for the development of human capital. The federal government of Nigeria, in recognition of the crucial role of human capital development, has formulated different policies, such as the National Population Policy 2014, and established various agencies for building the skills of our citizens. This shows government's determination to manage the growth of the population through accelerated human capital development. However, the policies and frameworks seem not to be achieving the desired results. It is against this background that the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, His Excellency Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR, tasked the participants of the Senior Executive Court 42 of the National Institute to research on the theme, population growth and human capital development in Nigeria, challenges and opportunities. The aim of this study, this presentation, therefore, is to report out on the findings and recommendations of the study and stimulate discussions at this conference. The outline of the presentation is as shown on the screen. Let us start by looking at the findings on population growth. First is the general trend and projections on population growth in Nigeria. Nigeria is the most populous country in Africa and is currently the 7th in the world. According to the estimates from the 2006 National Population and Housing Census figures, Nigeria currently has a population of over 200 million people, with an average annual population growth rate of 3.2%. At this rate, Nigeria is projected to become the world's 3rd most populous country by the year 2050, with an estimated population of 410 million, coming after China and India. Next is the demographic composition of the population. Nigeria has a total fertility rate of 5.4, compared with Kenya and South Africa with 3.5 and 2.4, respectively. The Nigeria population pyramid, as shown on the screen, shows that majority of the population lies between ages of 0 to 14 years. The percentage of the population under 15 years is currently 43.5%. This indicates that the fertility rate of the country is high and implies a high dependency ratio. It also implies that a large proportion of the population will soon be entering into the working age group. This sheer weight of population size will continue to exert pressure on available social amenities and affect the quality of life of the population. Accordingly, new job opportunities would be required to meet up with the projected increase in the labor force. Nigeria population is made up of 55% youth and 45% dependents. Hence, the proportion of dependents in Nigeria is very high. Then, the drivers of population growth. Nigeria's population growth rate is driven by 3 factors, which are fertility rate, mortality rate, and migration. Fertility and mortality rates are the significant population growth drivers. Nigeria has high fertility rates. The mortality profile of Nigeria has also declined, but is still at an unacceptable rate. Now, let us look at the regional variation in population growth rate. It is noteworthy that population growth rate in Nigeria is not uniform across the geopolitical zones. For instance, we found that the average total fertility rate in Nigeria in the northern region is about 5.9% compared to the average total fertility rate in the southern region, which is about 4.2%. In addition, the percentage of teenagers who have begun childbearing in the Northwest is 28.5%, compared with 5.5% in the Southwest. Similarly, the percentage of married women using any method of family planning in the Northwest is 6.7%, compared with 21.7% in the South-South. What then does this mean? It means that efforts to contain population growth is beginning to yield modest results, but this is confined largely to the southern parts of the country. It is also possible to infer that the Northwest and the Northeast require sustained targeted interventions if the outcome growth is to improve. Therefore, we are of the view that when it comes to policy intervention to address population growth in Nigeria, one size does not fit all across the geopolitical zones. In other words, there should be specific interventions tailored towards different regions, depending on the contextual imperatives. What then are the causes of regional variations? We found that the causes of regional variations in the population growth include level of education, early marriage, inadequate funding for family planning programs, contraceptive prevalence rates, as well as cultural resistance to family planning. Other findings on population growth include: 1, absence of reliable data that will enable proper planning and efficient utilization of resources. 2, lack of one-stop data shop in Nigeria for all the population data required for human capital development. There is no effective coordination among the many institutions responsible for gathering and providing population data. 3, problem with the governance architecture in Nigeria. The state governments do not have any policy on population, and they are not constitutionally bound to comply with the national population policy. Therefore, vertical and horizontal fragmentation in the governance system is a major barrier to effective implementation of policy. 4, the political economy of population figures is a sensitive subject matter, making it difficult for coherent vertical and horizontal harmony across the tiers of government. Population figures is the basis for political constituency and the question of revenue. This makes it to political manipulation, suspicion, and instability. 5, non-differentiation in the roles assigned to traditional rulers, religious leaders, with the thinking that they are the same. Let us now go to findings on human capital development. Human capital development means building an appropriate balance between any critical mass of human resource base and providing enabling environment for all individuals to fully engage and contribute to national development. The key pillars of human capital development include education system, health and social services, as well as per capita income. On education, as of 2019, out of school children in the country were over 16 million. Out of primary school, about 10 million, and out of secondary school children, about 6 million. Nigeria adult literacy rate was at 62% in 2018, while that of Ghana was 79.04% in the same year. From the table on the screen, the percentage of women with no education in the Northwest is 57.2%, compared with 14.2% for the Southeast. From the table on the screen, the primary school and secondary school national attendance ratio in the North Central is 66.4% and 37.4% respectively, compared with that of the Southeast, which stands at 80 and 59%. It may also interest you to know that one of our findings reveals that there are 15 scientists and engineers engaged in research and development per 1 million persons in Nigeria. Compare this to 158 in India, 168 in Brazil, 459 in China, and 4,101 in the United States of America. Now to health. According to UNICEF, Nigeria has the second highest burden of stunted children in the world, with a national prevalence rate of 32% for children under 5 years. An estimated 2 million children in Nigeria suffer from severe acute malnutrition, but only 2 out of every 10 children affected is currently reached with treatment. Nigeria's maternal mortality rate for 2017 was 917 at 0.86%, while for Ghana, it was 308 at 1.91%. The current infant mortality rate for Nigeria, as at this 2020, is 59.181 deaths per 1,000 live births, while for Ghana, it is 33.7 deaths per 1,000 live births. The life expectancy for Nigeria in 2019 was 54.49%, while for Ghana, it was 63.91 years. If we disaggregate this by gender, the picture is even more depressing. In terms of human capital development, the progress is not fast enough in Nigeria because the country has not been able to effectively harness the potentials of population growth towards human capital development. Further findings on human capital development reveals the following. 1, lack of clearly articulated human capital development agenda in Nigeria. What we have now is rather a set of fragmented sectoral efforts that are aimed at human capital development. 2, lack of a central coordinating agency and no specific human capital development policy framework to set agenda on an annual basis along the key components of education, health, and standard of living. 3, segmented efforts with lack of effective coordination and synergy. Each component is rather being managed independent of the other under respective sectoral policy frameworks. In conclusion, it can be seen that instead of the population growth of Nigeria becoming an asset, it is now a burden and a drag on the process of achieving human capital development. Nigeria has an economic potential, but what becomes of that potential depends on the choice we make. In the speech delivered by Bill Gates at the Special National Economic Council during his visit to Nigeria in 2018, he said, and I quote, "The most important choice you can make is to maximize your greatest resource, the Nigerian people. Nigeria will thrive when every Nigeria is able to thrive. If you invest in your health, education, and opportunities, the human capital we are talking about today, then they will lay the foundation for sustained prosperity. If you don't, however, then it is very important to recognize that there will be a sharp limit on how much the country can grow." End of quote. On the basis of this, the following recommendations are proffered. Recommendation 1, interventions on family planning should be context-specific and observe variations on the needs of the socio-political zones. Recommendation 2, the roles of religious leaders and traditional rulers on the promotion of family planning should be separated and broken down, rather than being lumped together, as their roles and influences are not the same across geopolitical zones. Recommendation 3, communication strategies targeting family planning demands should be contextual, with consideration for religious and sociocultural beliefs and practices of different geopolitical zones. Recommendation 4, the federal government should create a council for human capital development to institutionalize the coordination of all human capital development initiatives. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, this brings me to the end of this presentation. Thank you for listening.
Please, can we appreciate Professor Haneku one more time? Thank you very much, Professor. So I will now call on the other panelists to shed more light on some of the issues that are raised, and they will address questions together. I know we already got a question as to when the population census will be conducted for Nigeria. I will allow them to respond to this, but I remember clearly that we made a clear recommendation to the president on that, and we got a response from the Secretary to the Government of Federation. So I'll let them shed light on that, beginning with Pharmacist Yakasai, then Professor will follow.
Can do it here? Okay, let me go there. Your Highness, all protocol of that. Yes, it is true. Part of our recommendations, we recommended said to the president that 10-year census should start from 2023, because we know without census, we cannot plan well. We cannot plan for the country in all angles. And what they said, we are in recession. There will be election in 2023, and they need over 400 billion naira to organize a census. And indeed, funding is a problem. Some development partners are checking out from contributing to the government as far as census is concerned, because it's a serious issue. So we felt if we can organize a census, accurate census, even though we have a lot of problems from different regions, agreeing, disagreeing, accepting, not accepting, but it is a tradition. It is not in the law that government must organize census every 10 years. But we know we have signed a convention, treaty of United Nations, where they advise every country should organize census every 10 years. It is better to organize every 5 years. But at the end of the day, we realize probably the incoming government, the government that will take over from Buhari, possibly is the one to organize the next census. Definitely, it is not feasible now. Recession, funding is a problem. Time is a problem, because we wanted 2020 or at least to organize the census, but it seems it's not possible. And I agreed with the guy who asked the question that, don't you think that infrastructure deficiency is due to lack of appropriate population figures? It is true. If you don't know the actual figure, you cannot plan well. You cannot get it. So we are just projecting, and definitely the plan is suffering. So with this, I want to tell you that we have recommended so many areas of concentration that we feel the government should go for it. Especially in Nigeria, we don't want to hear family planning or reduction of fertility. So we are encouraging the word child spacing. All other African countries, when they use the word child spacing, both Muslims, child spacing, both the Christian and Muslim, they gladly accepted it. Like Uganda now, they are using child spacing. That is the word. So the Catholic and the Muslims, they accepted it. And we felt our traditional rulers, religious leaders should go out for study tours. They, like Christians, they should go to Poland. I think 98% of the population are Catholic, but they go for child spacing. Muslims should go to Egypt and see how they are doing it, or Jordan. You will believe with me, definitely we are going to embrace child spacing. So with this, I want to tell you that yes, population growth cannot be just appropriately known without conducting census. We conducted census only last 2006 with so many arguments and so on. But I believe it will come to pass by the grace of God. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Pharmacist Yakasai, for this. I just want to shed a little light on it. When the chairman of the National Population Commission was also there in the villa with us. And the day before, I remember he put a call through to the DG to confirm whether we were making any recommendation on the need to conduct the census. And we confirmed to him that it's what the recommendations we're making. So he was also at the villa. The problem with population census is just say the timing. First, it's not possible to conduct it in 2021. It requires a lot of money and a lot of planning. The earliest time it could be conducted is 2022. 2022 is too close to election. So, and we know what population figure means for election. So for now, what we can do in the short term is the subsequent policy advice, policy brief that will be sending to the president. We keep re-echoing the need to collect this data. Maybe there are other ways of doing it instead of this with modern technology. With modern technology, probably we don't need to be knocking on people's doors. Maybe there are some low-hanging fruits out there that we can still use to capture this data. But let's see what happens. So I'll call on Professor Adeyanju to make his contribution.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think before I go into answering any question, let me quickly tell us, because some may be wondering, what was the methodology we used in this study? This is a study we conducted for 10 months. And part of the methodology, the first aspect is that we did very intensive desk research to know the situation on ground. That is to assess situational analysis. And we also did both physical and virtual focus group discussion with stakeholders. We conducted interviews with leaders and top decision makers like ministers and experts to deliver period that I spoke, so that we can have a quality of the situation. We conducted virtual study tour because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Ordinarily, we do physical study tour. And it was in 14 federal and national strategic institutions, including National Population Commission, Ministry of Health, and some others, including National Directorate of Employment, all the institutions that are involved, both population growth and human capital development. With study tour of 12 states and 6 states, including the governors of the states, all the commissioners, some related commissioners, captains, and then MDA handlers. Aside that, we also did physical study tour of 4 countries in Africa. That include Ghana, Uganda, Tanzania, and Niger. Of these, we have similar socio-cultural, and some as of likely. So we wanted to learn what is it that they are doing that we're not doing correctly. So our major focus was to establish the strategic environment. What kind of strategic environment? Because if you say something is working in Ghana, why is it not working in Nigeria? If it is working in the US, why is it not working? You need to understand the strategic environment. So our study focused on that. And we also focused on the frameworks, the kind of policy frameworks, legal frameworks, and institutional frameworks. Do we have enough to deliver in terms of population growth and human capital development? It's after all this that we were able to do our analysis and come up with recommendations. And as Prof said, we had, I think, 14 recommendations. We had 14 recommendations for Mr. President to cover different aspects, including that of family planning. So I think I'll stop there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Adeyanju. I don't know whether we have other comments or questions, or whether there are things that Yakasai would like to add to this, or Ahane. Sir? Yes. Why is it important? Yes, yes. So you want to speak to that?
obviously, family planning is very important to it because for every human being born in any country, we need social amenities and other things. And if the number of people in the country outweigh amenities and other things, then there is a problem and an imbalance. But the problem in this instance, like Yakasai was talking about, because multi-ethnic nature in the country, multi-religious nature, a lot of factors aside these ones affect, just like people were talking about census, because both creating political enclaves and so on depend on population. People tend to influence it. So these are factors that have to be factored in. But suffice it to say that family planning, some of the things presented here, for me, are reasons why it may be difficult for certain religions to accept what we are teaching. And that's why sometimes we tend to tilt towards child spacing, because some works presented here talked about contraceptive use among adolescents. So are we promoting sex, provided there's no pregnancy, or are we promoting, sensible sexual relationship among married people? And if we don't separate the two, we will not get anywhere. Because even amongst the educated, once you are promoting contraceptive use amongst adolescents, people that are really that have religious inclinations will resist you to the latter. So we must always draw a line between the two.
Thank you very much, Professor Haneku. Strategic communication, messaging are very important. I think because of time, we'll probably draw this session to a close so that we can create space for other interactions. On this note, I want to thank the panel. Neku, thank you very much. Professor Adeyanju, thank you. Pharmacist Yakasai, thank you very much. Your Royal Highness, distinguished member of the audience, thank you very much for listening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, I think we need to give this last session another round of applause. They did very well. Thank you very much. I think at this point it's also important for me to bring to our notice, because a lot of issues have been said about religious perspective to family planning. It might be helpful if you there are two publications I know of by NFPC2020, Islamic perspectives on family planning and Christian perspectives on family planning. I don't know if we can make those documents available for participants. They will help a lot because, interestingly, both religions talk about family planning and they are not against family planning the way it's been presented. So please, NFPC2020, if you can help us with those documents, it will be appreciated. Okay, because we are running for time, we'll just go straight to the next session on this program, which will be chaired and co-chaired by Dr. Jennifer Ayonti and Ms. Fifi Oluwatoyin. Please, a round of applause for them as they come to the high table. I'll hand over the microphone to them and they will introduce the session appropriately. You're welcome.
We need one more chair. So, good afternoon. This mic is working. Can you hear me? I should remove my mask. Video. Okay, is it better now? Okay. So good afternoon, everyone, and good evening, and I'd like to say a very warm welcome to all of you. We're actually taking the second half of this plenary, which is plenary 4, and we're going to be talking about new product introduction, self-care and self-injection innovations for expanding contraceptive access in Nigeria. And we're going to try to keep very much to time. Of course, the aim of our discussion is a panel discussion. So please do take out your biros and papers, especially those who are online, or record so that you'll be able to listen to what we're talking about. But first of all, I'm sitting here alone. They're actually panel discussants. And I'd like to turn over to my co-chair to introduce our panelists.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jenny. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, all protocols duly observed. My name is Fifi Oluwatonyo. As the project director. I don't think the mic is working very well. Okay. So I'd like to call the first panelist. I'm going to my honor to invite to the high table Dr. Kayode Afolabi. He's the Director of Reproductive Health and Family Planning in Nigeria Federal Ministry of Health. He's an obstetric gynecologist with extensive experience in both public and private sector. Under his leadership, the Nigeria RH and FP sector he has been a speaker at many on family planning. You're welcome, sir. The second panelist is Dr. Adewale Adefalu. He's the country coordinator of GSI Path Access Collaborative in Nigeria. He's a public health physician with over 19 years leadership experience of managing complex public health and research interventions. He has contributed widely to coordination of sexual reproductive health policy and advocacy, service delivery, and supply chain management in Nigeria. Welcome, sir. And the last but not the least, I'd like to make welcome Dr. Anthony Walla. He's a public health specialist with a passion for reproductive health and family planning. He holds a degree in medicine and has 2 master's degrees in public health and business administration, and is currently the family planning reproductive health practice lead at the Society for Family Health. He's an exceptional leader, talented at team building, staff motivation, and supervision. Welcome very much, sir.
Thank you very much, Fifi. We are struggling with our mic, so we'd like to ask the technical team to please provide us with some assistance, because I'm not sure that anybody can hear us apart from those that are in the hall. So Peter, I'd like to encourage you if you can. So like I said earlier, our topic is new product introduction, self-care and self-injection, and we know that the whole agenda currently is around how can women have access to self-care, so to family planning, through a self-care route for themselves. And so what we're trying to do here is to outline the key role that new products and innovations can play, especially DMPASC for self-injection and self-care. And how can this support the post-2020 FP agenda? We heard this morning that now it's a 2030 FP agenda. And how we can safeguard family planning in emergencies. We have some specific objectives. One is to highlight how the systematic inclusion of self-care solutions, including self-injection at all levels in the country, can accelerate Nigeria's progress towards achieving its MCPR goals. We also want to discuss government's efforts, and Dr. Afolabi will be discussing a lot of those with us on how we are introducing new and underutilized contraceptive products, which are critical at this time, and also to highlight existing best practices, lessons and trends in self-care innovations, including self-injection of DMPSC, and he has given us some of the figures earlier in the day from specific states, as well as a look at the total market, both private and public sector, and unique learnings that we had during the COVID-19 pandemic. This is mainly going to be a discussion session, and we hope to have about 10 minutes now, because the time has been cut a bit, for questions and answers from the audience and online. So I'd like to first of all ask Dr. Afolabi, of course, as our father in this. We know that new and underutilized contraceptive products and self-care is part of the Federal Ministry of Health strategy to achieve Nigeria's MCPR goals, which we see are climbing rather slowly. So could you please describe government's efforts and its strategies to support and scale up innovations, such as in the area of self-care?
Yes, thank you very much, Jenny. I say good evening to everyone, especially our royal fathers and all those that have been here since morning. Government has put in place a lot of strategies and approaches to ensure that as far as sexual reproductive health is concerned, we are working towards universal access. And that's what has led to a self-care uh, and movements like tax shifting tax sharing policy, which we have been implementing for over 6 years in the country now, which of course is being expanded um, since the end of last year. So we believe that focusing on self-care, we enhance access and uptake of family planning services as well as other reproductive, maternal, newborn, and child health services. Also, it will ensure that we are able to reach our women and ladies in their reproductive age with improved method choice. And what is this concept of self-care all about? According to WHO, self-care is all about empowering individuals having access to healthcare services with or without the support of healthcare provider. That means non-conventional services outlets that have been ignored or have not been focused enough in the past will be strengthened through self-care. So currently we are working, we have just finalized a national guideline on self-care for sexual, reproductive, and maternal health services in the country. I believe this will contribute greatly towards our traction as we go forward in 2030 agenda. We also emphasize that the guideline, we articulate our access to sexual and reproductive health services, including family planning, will be expanded to include home, pharmacies, chemist shops, and other potential service delivery points. So government have been working on introduction and scale up of DMPSC with particular reference in this case to self-injection since 2018. And we have been able to record a lot of success. We also believe that our approach in this regard has contributed to the success we recorded. For instance, we adopted total market approach at the beginning, considering both the private and public sector, what are the interventions we need to have or to make for us to seamlessly introduce DMPA, SC, and self-injection into the method mix across the country. We had the opportunity of meeting with donors at global level, and we made very passionate appeal to them to spread the support across the state so that we will not just be focusing a few states as is usually common, Lagos, Kaduna, Kano, maybe one or two other. And they all agreed among themselves. They spread the coverage of the support with exclusion of only 4 states where we have still not made enough traction. So that total market approach really helped us so much. And then the leadership and coordination demonstrated by the Federal Ministry of Health and our implementing partners as well as government agency working on family planning has been very contributory as major driver of our success. Then one want to consider what are these achievements. I mentioned some of them earlier today on DMPSC, but for purpose of emphasis, I can just repeat a few of them. We were able to list DMPSC on the essential medicine list, which was quite very tedious to achieve, but we achieved this and it gave the introduction a very rapid traction. And now, when we started in 2018, we had just only 504 facilities. Now we have almost 8,000 facilities reporting, providing services through GMPSC. And don't forget that we are considering the NPSC self-injection as a game changer and as a very good example of self-care. Consumption has also increased from over 5,000 to about 143,000 monthly, why we've been able to conduct a lot of capacity building. We train almost 30,000 healthcare providers, and we have this commodity available in every state of the country today, except one state where we are still addressing the issue of availability of the commodity. So what do you think self-care and DMPSC self-injection will contribute to post-2020 agenda? We strongly believe that by expanding access to key underserved populations such as adolescents and women in fragile or humanitarian settings, it will add value to our achieving the Nigeria's post-2020 FP agenda and targets. And of course, self-care intervention provide this unique advantage of ensuring that women can use family planning services they choose. Not only that, it increases the product we have in the method mix, but also gives them a good leverage on the control they have on their sexuality. And as shown by anecdotal evidence during COVID-19 pandemic outbreak, especially when we were at the peak of it, self-injection ensured that women continue to utilize family planning despite the fact that they are restricted access to service delivery points. So we believe that this will contribute greatly to our achieving post-2020 agenda, as well as the implementation of self-care guidelines once it's launched by the Honorable Minister of Health. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. That was actually quite enlightening. What I enjoyed a lot was there are some areas which we see as game-changing in family planning. You mentioned the whole issues around self-care and DMPASC and what it could do. Of course, the task-shifting, task-sharing policy that's being pushed so that lower cadre health providers are able to provide these methods after training. And of course, the issues around policy, such as the family planning blueprint and the costed implementation plans that many of us partners here also supported states and the federal government to develop. So thank you very much, sir, for that. I'd like to now move on quickly to ask you one more question, sir. We always talk about states, and you mentioned people tend to focus on certain states, Lagos, Kano, Kaduna, but you mentioned that there have been some success stories in other states. Which states are these? And would you like to highlight maybe something quickly that you felt was a critical success factor for a state government?
Yes, thank you very much, Jenny. Ogun State will readily come in mind in this regard, because when we started self-care, DMP SC self-injection, we had the support to roll out capacity building in 10 states, supported by DMPSC throughout. And Ogun State did exemplarily well. The observation I made as to the driver of their success include the fact that we put up a very good coordination and leadership structure, which they align with early in the course of the introduction of the NPSC. And then we also ensure that we have very strong collaboration between the Federal Ministry of Health, State Ministry of Health, and State Primary Care Development Agency. And we encourage states to also share experience among themselves. And we use Ogun State as a leading state to give experience they have and make other states to learn and see if they could adopt their own process for them to also achieve faster their target. Thank you.
And kudos to Ogun State. I now move over to Dr. Nwala. And I'd like to ask you, I know you've been doing a lot of work on a number of projects in SFH on self-care and new product scale-up. Could you highlight to us any lessons learned, challenges, both public and private, and any recent learnings you had during COVID?
Thank you very much, moderator. Good evening, all. Um, yes, we've done a lot of work, especially in the area of new products, um, and particularly in the area of DMPA SC scale up in Nigeria. Um, the, the major lessons learned is for us is that partnership is a key to achieving success in this area. Like the director mentioned, we partner with the government, we partner with other implementing partners, and then relevant stakeholders. In fact, at the beginning, we formed what we termed the think tank committee, which involved these partners. And this think tank committee has driven this process and metamorphosed up to the level of an editorial team for the development of the self-care guideline. So that's one of our major learnings, that partnership drives, this process. The other one is demand generation. Demand creation is key. We found that community-based distribution and community-based demand creation was key to our success. And somewhere along the line, when COVID came in, we now also reverted to mass media, working with Population Media Center at PMC. And so demand creation is important to us. And like the director also alluded to the tax shifting, tax sharing policy, we had community-based distribution agents who about 60% of them are covered under the TSTS to be able to, give some level of services that in area of DMPA SC. And then for COVID learnings, like you asked, again, like I said, in partnership, immediately the COVID setting, the minister made a statement and said that contraception should be regarded as an essential service. We locked onto that, went to the ministry, and because we're already working in partnership, we're able to get waivers, letters to allow CBDAs work freely in the communities. We're able to work with other IPs like JSI, who is here, to develop innovative methods of reaching out to women, getting data collection, training providers, training women on self-injection. We adapted the part video, put it on WhatsApp, and it acted as a counseling method for us. So there are a lot of learnings. In COVID, we were able to procure PPEs, give it out to the CBDAs. We're able to adapt the messages, COVID messages. First of all, train the CBDAs and train them how to train women in the community. And coming in with correct information on COVID was like an inroad to even talking about the NPSC and self-injection. So majorly, for want of time, some of the challenges were about linkages, linking the women to the facilities. Again, with the partnership, we developed the DMPSC guidelines, the self-injection guidelines. However, the guideline specifies that to initiate a woman on self-injection, she has to, give herself under supervision at least twice in front of a provider. So those linkages were a bit difficult during this period. Those are majorly the challenges, and then cost of transportation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nwala. Okay, so I'd like to now move over to Dr. Wale. And I'd like to ask you, of course, we know that the Access Collaborative has been front and center in the areas around DMPSC introduction, scale-up in Nigeria. So I'd like to ask, what new product introduction, monitoring, implementation, policy tools and resources do you have, and how are they being used? Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, moderator. Good afternoon, everyone. The Royal Highness has stepped out. I also want to stand on the existing protocol. I think what you just brought to my mind, the fact that over the course of our lives, you find out that maybe 4 or 5 times in a decade, there's always the advent of a new product, family planning product. So you have this situation in which there are options that are expanding. It becomes sometimes something of a burden to countries if they are not prepared for some of the shocks that happen in the course of introducing this product to the method mix. For us, essentially, introducing the NPSC had been a an eye opener, sorry, for several of the challenges that we saw, some of the lessons that we also learned in the course of doing that. One of them, I want to probably reiterate what the director just mentioned, Dr. Afolabi just mentioned, about the need for government leadership. I think stewardship in terms of granting access and coordination can only stem from a strong leadership from the government. And I think this has been one of the very critical things that have made us able to achieve many of the tractions that Nigeria has had. These are progresses that have been referred to in many global fora, because Nigeria seems to be a leader with introducing this product right now. So one of those things that we learned is the fact that there are some of these processes that require health strengthening effort, health system strengthening effort, and integration into existing systems. While some of them might be standalone activities that happen in the course of introduction. Some of the health system strengthening things for most new products, from our experience, will include things like issues around including the product in the supply plan, so that procurement and distribution can actually happen seamlessly for the new product. Another area is removing some of the bottlenecks, policy bottlenecks that we see in the course of introduction. For instance, when we're introducing the NPSC, at that point, Nigeria just, the tax shifting tax sharing policy only allows senior committee extension workers to handle injectable. It became a barrier because we were, from global evidences, even local evidence, we knew that this product can be handled by even the women who are not trained at all. So we had to move quickly with the government to ensure, the government led that process of ensuring that this policy was expanded so that cadres like PPMVs, like community pharmacies, like even core community resource people could actually handle the NPSC. And this was a major leverage that could allow the expansion across the country that we saw. Same thing like the AML that, like Director mentioned. There was also the working with the PPCN to include that product in the approved patent medicine list so that farmers, patent medicine vendors can actually safely stock without the regulatory bottlenecks that you see from time to time. Then in terms of service delivery, there was a movement by everybody in the FP space to ensure that we integrate that product into our routine trainings. So curricula that were existing had to be expanded to allow this product to be part of the regular training that were happening across the country, so that we don't have that thing of having to train people and go back and train again, but it became something that was integrated into existing processes. Also the revision for the HMIS, which is one of the biggest and the most difficult part of it, because these are time-bound things. So if you are not lucky to fall within the window of time of review for the HMIS, become a challenge, getting that product, the national visibility that it desires to see. So, but there are some standalone things like developing resources, best practices, tools, and other things that are specific to the product that also need to happen at the same time. But one of the greatest lessons we learned was starting off, we had envisaged a system in which we are, for our training, we're looking at 5 days training for community people and 3 days for those who are injection experienced. But when we look at the cost, we did a cost analysis. We saw how explosive that was. The donors had come in with very impressive promises, which, like the government said from time to time, eventually could not materialize. So we had to look inwards and see what do we do. And one of the things that happened was that, together with partners, the government decided to institute a study to look at cost-effective approaches. And that was very helpful because we came to the realization that we didn't need that number of days. From global evidences that have happened, even locally, we can do these trainings in 10.5 hours, in 14.5 hours, because essentially what you need to do for somebody who is experienced is to teach him how to use it. But for those who are community people, then you can start thinking about things around value clarification, counseling, and so they had a little more number of hours to get up to speed in terms of this training needs. So another thing we saw was that because self-injection created the opportunity for continuation for women, the easy access to products across time, the fact that they don't have to go back to the facility from time to time. We have to come up with a national policy on what is going to be the dispensing protocol for the product. And we saw that we need to give the woman the necessary information first, train them, ensure they are competent, and they have a contract with the provider in terms of the fact that they have a willingness to continue to use the product. Then they are allowed to go home with at least 2 products for their use. So doing this gives the woman some opportunity for continuation for 9 months of protection for, against pregnancy, so to say. So I think basically other things quickly around the issues of including the product in the HMIS, including the ELMIS. These are the very quick windows of opportunity we had, because putting that product in the ELMIS gave the government a chance to develop a time-limited monitoring opportunity to look at the product, so that right now we have a sense of exactly how much product is being dispensed in a faraway place like even Meduguri. You can look at the facilities on the HMIS and know how much consumption they had, what stock do they have, where are they stocked out nationally. And this was something that was very helpful to the government in aligning product distribution to where there were also need for those products. Then the coordination that came in from the Federal Ministry of Health was to develop a coordination committee within the NRHTWG. And this was the greatest lever we had, because this committee met regularly on a quarterly basis and reported back to the technical working group. This committee was actually responsible for looking at monitoring the national progress and reporting back to the TW. Many of us partners were within this committee, so we could get feedback on trainings that were happening across the country. And by virtue of those information, we could align products distribution to where we had trained providers. So you don't just put products in a facility where there are no providers, but you're actually aligning this directly to where there are needs. So there are several other things that I would probably have mentioned, but I don't know if IT people can please put up the slides? There are several resources online which we can have access to. I would have wished we had more time to do all of this, but I think it will just flash on as we go ahead with the questions. So you could just look at the screen. And if you want any of these resources, you could always please reach out to us, and we could avail you the opportunity. So please, IT, can you please help us with the PowerPoint I gave you? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wale. This was really quite enlightening for all of us. And I think it shows a segue into, maybe people do have questions and comments. I was trying to log in online, but I think that may take me away from what I'm doing, because we don't have that much time. But I'd like to ask the audience, do you have questions for the panel relating to self-care? And okay, so there's a question. Thank you, from online. Okay, so I'll just take the first one. Demand generation is one section in FP that is the least funded when it comes to mass communication. Partners, with the exception of a few, do not budget, I guess, for demand generation activities from the inception of their projects. Government is also underfunded in health promotion activities. And I think I heard that discussion earlier today. So what is government, Dr. Valabitis, for you, and partners doing to promote funding for awareness of family planning commodities? And the second question is, family planning was the least with inadequate awareness during the pandemic. Why is this so? So maybe first question goes to Dr. Falabi. So what are government doing to promote funding for awareness of family planning?
Thank you, Dr. Jennifer Yante. There are a lot of efforts on demand generation through various social and behavioral change communications. And these are mostly anchored on National Family Planning Communication Plan, which is what guides all social and behavioral change activities to generate demand. There are a lot of information using traditional and emerging media to communicate to, Nigerians on family planning. And recently, we have also reviewed some of those strategies to ensure that they are culturally acceptable in every perspective, and that they also reach a wider target population. So I will say that the system is in place for demand generation. On family planning during COVID, was that question for me too, or for all of us?
It's that it was the least, all of us, but I mean,
Was the least communicated?
Was the least communicated.
Well, all of us know that at the peak of, or at the beginning of pandemic, with all the restrictions, um, most sectors went in disarray, including sexual and reproductive health, which was not prioritized as of that time. So the communication or risk communication around COVID-19 pandemic will, of course, take the center spread. But then, the moment the Honorable Minister approved that SRH must be a priority even during the pandemic, a lot of interventions on communication and demand generation family planning went on air. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And Dr. Wale, the next question is for you. We're being asked that, did you encounter anywhere where DMPAST was resisted? Because it's only drug addicts in Nigeria that usually self-inject. That's the comment from the person, so the resistance.
Okay, thank you very much. That's an interesting question, but I think it's also a very brilliant question. Yeah, because just like everything in life, there's always that initial apathy we have or resistance that we have to changing a norm. So for many of us, we see self-injection as something that, I mean, there were several initial resistance from the provider group. There was that fear that you are taking the autonomy of their practice from their hands and giving it to women. So there was that fear that they are going to lose clientele or the power of playing God, like we know health workers do. There were also some backlash. I think we got to know that the government had, from people who went up there, as far as the presidency, to mention that they were putting hormonal contraceptives in the hands of women. So, I mean, I know the government had to fight a hard and long battle to actually create awareness about the fact that there are global learnings, even learnings locally in the country, that shows that this product is safe and that the processes that will be put in place will ensure that we remove also challenges that will happen. And some of these actually informed some of the subsequent decisions that the country had to take, so that we currently now, from our national self-injection guideline, have agreed that for a woman to initiate self-injection, she must first have the opportunity to have been examined for eligibility by a trained provider. That way, we are sure that she's actually fit to have that product. I know there are several innovations that are coming into place, but all of these innovations, we also make sure that there is some sort of safety nets that is created for women to be able to have access to this triaging for such a method.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wale. I'm about to ask my co-chair to round up, but I have to ask this question to Dr. Nwala. And Dr. Nwala, the question here is, what is the position of male contraceptives in Nigeria? What's happening?
Thank you very much, man. Actually, I don't know if it's because of the name it was given, but the Gossipol tablet never picked up. However, there are other experimental methods like the e-shell, like the Vasogel, that are being developed now. The Vasogel came out initially a non-reversible, but now we are trying to find, the experiments are trying to find a way to make it reversible. So apart from Dr. Mutir is here, apart from Plateau State, where men are very receptive to contraception, we still have a lot of work to do in the rest of the states in Nigeria. Thank you.
So over to my co-chair. Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Jenny, and thank you, wonderful panelists. I'm just going to summarize what I heard from this panel discussion. I have listed a lot of values when it comes to self-care, and the first has to do with expanded access. When it comes to the tax shifting, tax sharing policy has created expanded access, for contraceptive use. It has also helped to increase adoption because we are using the total market approach. When you engage the public and the private sector, you are increasing adoption because there are now different avenues that women can access contraception. The third value has to do with additional option for contraceptive use. We see that the self-care has created an additional option for women to be able to access contraceptive. And some of the lessons learned, the importance of stewardship. We heard from all our panelists the importance of stewardship. We heard the importance of partnership and demand generation, and training, the very importance of training and opportunities for integration into existing structures. At this point, I want to say thank you to our wonderful panelists, and for those who are watching online and physically, thank you for partaking in this session, and we hope you learned a lot. Thank you very much.
Let's encourage them. They did very well. Thank you very much. I find it very funny whenever you hear male contraceptives. Men laugh, women laugh, and men laugh some more. Perhaps we need to have male champions who can use to show example for male contraceptive use.